Hey guys. So here I am, all by myself. So it's Sunday, and I'm thinking about maybe sharing some quick videos with you guys. I'll just post a few minutes every day talking about some of the material from the chapters that we are covering in class. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm in my walking clothes. I just did 3 or 4 miles, I think, something like that. So we'll also talk about, and I'd like to set up some group chats to maybe talk about what you guys are doing to deal with our strange lives these days. And it's important to take care of yourself, obviously, and get some fresh air and sunshine whenever you can. And, we're just kind of doing this as we go along. So, I could not let this chapter go. So chapter 11 is on personality development. And so the first question is, what's personality? Well, it's the way that we characteristically deal with and think about and behave life as it comes at us. And I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday because they were really stressing out about something that was, maybe seemed to everybody else to be a minor thing. And I said, it's important to remember that these are stressful days, and we all, when we're under stress, our personalities tend to become a little bit more exaggerated. So the way that you cope with stressors, you might find are a little bit, in other words, if you like to be in control of things, if that helps you feel better, you're going to have urges to be more in control of things right now because there's so much that feels out of our control, things like that. So the moral of that story is be patient with yourself and with everybody else. Anyway, I'm so upset because I left my Freud action figure at the office, and I like to bring him to class. So if I get back to the office this week, I'll get him and he can make some guest appearances. He's cuter actually to look at than me right now. But lots of people say he looks like Colonel Sanders, so you be the judge. Anyway, so the first section of chapter 11 is really devoted to Freud and Freud's theory of personality. Now, it's important to remember that none of Freud's theories are scientifically testable. They have not been proven, and a lot of what he said is pretty far out. However, some of what you're going to read, some of what we'll talk about, you may say, anecdotally at least, wow, maybe there is something to this, and maybe there is. But I think, if I haven't said this before, let me say it now. I think that one of the important things about Freud is that because he was so far out there and came up with these theories that blew people away, especially in Victorian times in which he lived, that it's people's reaction to him that really got the ball rolling and advanced the field of psychology tremendously. So, first thing, the conscious and the unconscious. Freud thought that only about 10% of what is in our heads is actually conscious and available to us. So if I ask you what you had for dinner last night, I had sushi last night. It was really good. You can pull that into your conscious. Your conscious holds everything you're thinking about right now and all the memories that are accessible to you. Your unconscious is all the things that are unavailable. And the reason it's unavailable is because you have somehow pushed it down into the unconscious because it's somehow threatening, or it's judged to be wrong or something like that. And so it's unavailable to you. But Freud said that's the stuff that has tremendous impacts on how we think and act and behave, our personalities, and really drives our behavior a lot of times, but it's outside of our awareness. So there's ways that we access that, and we'll talk about therapies later on. Freud thought that accessing that stuff from the unconscious and getting it out was what you had to do in order to deal with it, to process it, and to become mentally healthy. Freud also talked about the id, the ego, and the superego. So the id is the only part that's present at birth, and the id is all about I want it now, I don't care what the consequences are, if it feels good, do it, that kind of thing. It's those people on spring break on the beaches that we see on the news. The superego develops later on in childhood, and the superego is the judgmental part. It's the moralizing part. It's the part that makes you feel guilty. And Freud said that no one will ever be a harsher critic of us than ourselves, because other people can judge what we do. We judge what we think. And of course, we all think awful things from time to time. So there's two parts to the superego. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. But the ego then is the third part of the personality, and that's the part that has to deal with reality. So the ego has all these judgments coming from the superego and all of these demands coming from the id, and the ego tries to satisfy the demands of the id while still not in ways that are socially acceptable, or in times when there won't be negative outcomes, things like that. So the ego experiences stress sometimes. So if any of you remember or have watched the Flintstones, Fred, and you've seen the episodes where he's got the little devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, the devil is the id. It's like, oh, go ahead, Fred, do it. This will be great. And the angel's on the other shoulder saying, oh no, Fred, this is going to be terrible. And, nice guys don't do this and blah, 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 blah. And Fred's got to figure out a way to manage the realities of life and deal with these demands from both of these entities. So the ego sometimes can experience some stress. And that's where the defense mechanisms come in. And I think it's interesting that we're talking about defense mechanisms right now because of the situation that we're in. And again, because our personalities might become more exaggerated, because some of us may be experiencing some stress, you'll see those. So in the first section of your textbook, it talks about some defense mechanisms, and I wish that we had time to practice them all in class, but let's talk about some of them. Denial, the refusing to accept real events because they are unpleasant. We certainly see that around us. Some people are saying, this is, and I don't want to get political here, but some people are saying, oh, this isn't real, it's overblown, this whole thing is a joke, you can just, we shouldn't be closing schools or anything else. And that might be some denial. But also another good example of that is you may have witnessed somebody, or it may have happened to you when you've gotten terrible news about something. Maybe somebody's been in a serious accident, somebody that you love, maybe somebody has passed away. And sometimes you'll see that people at first refuse to believe that that's real and say, no, you must have the wrong person, that can't be right. And that's actually an adaptive psychological strategy. Not that that person's doing it on purpose. They really believe it not to be true, but it gives us a chance. Denial sometimes gives us a chance to rally our resources. So maybe that means getting to a place or getting to be with people that can support us or something like that. But denial can sometimes be very protective. So, but then other times not so protective, and it can be, denial can become pretty problematic. For example, if someone's denying that they have a drug or alcohol problem, for example. Displacement. So I hope nobody's ever gotten really mad at me. Maybe another professor, maybe a supervisor at work, maybe somebody like that. And we get upset with people that we know if we express that anger, we're afraid that there might be adverse consequences for us. So you don't want to lose your job, but still your boss made you angry. So what do? We often come home and kick the proverbial dog. No, don't kick the real dog. But seriously, we tend to get upset or express our anger at people that we love, that we feel safe with, because we know that there won't be adverse consequences. So, if we kick an inanimate object, if we, somehow express that anger someplace else, we're displacing it. Projection. So let's say that I always have horrible examples for these. I'm sorry. Let's say that I don't know. Let's say that I'm a huge gossip and I tell everybody's business all over town. So that's an undesirable quality. I don't want to own that as part of my personality. So I project it onto other people, and I say that about, my next door neighbor or the person that lives, I don't know, a friend of mine or a relative of mine. Well, she's a huge gossip and she tells everybody's business all over the place. So we project qualities that we have that are unacceptable or undesirable to us onto somebody else. Rationalization. This is coming up with an excuse for doing something that is reasonable but has nothing to do with the real reason that we didn't do it. So, maybe I didn't go to work because I wanted to go to the beach that day, but I come up with some other reason, or I didn't do well on my test. instead of saying, I didn't study for it because that's not part of my self-concept, I say, well, that test was so hard. And that was really an unreasonable assessment of what I know and what I don't know. That's that kind of thing. Reaction formation is when we feel one way and maybe we have unacceptable urges. So here's a terrible example. Let's say that you have somebody that has pedophilic urges, and rather than own them themselves because they don't want to, they become crusaders against pedophiles and become very much the opposite of what they really are. Regression is another. So regression is when we turn to coping mechanisms or behaviors that were characteristic of us in an earlier developmental stage when we're under stress. So if some of you may be the older sibling or have a younger sibling, and let's say that parents have a 3-year-old that's been potty trained for quite some time, and now they're bringing home a newborn from the hospital. And lo and behold, what happens is that the 3-year-old starts wetting the bed at night, and the parents are like, what? We did this already. We're all set to go. Well, because of the stress of having a new sibling in the house and not getting all the attention and all those sorts of things, you may see a child regress. There's certainly examples of this in adult behavior as well. Maybe midlife crises. We've all heard examples of those. Maybe this reaction to the stress associated with dealing with our own mortality. Repression, when we just simply block out memories altogether. So sometimes you see this in soldiers who have memories of, their memories of combat situations or something are completely unavailable to them. That may be because those memories are too painful, too stressful, too threatening to allow into the consciousness. And finally, there's sublimation. And Freud said this was the healthiest of all of the defense mechanisms, and he actually once went so far as to attribute all of human progress to sublimation, because he said that is when we take unacceptable urges, feelings, whatever, and translate them into something that's actually good for society. So for example, if you had unconscious urges to smother people, what could you do? You could become an anesthesiologist. If you had unconscious urges to cut people into bits, you could become a butcher. So again, don't kill the messenger. This is just Freudian theory. And I think so I'm at like 12. I said I was going to talk for 10 minutes. See, I can't stop myself. I miss you guys. I will talk about the stages of psychosexual development tomorrow. In the meantime, if you have any questions or want to chat, send me an email. And I'm actually going to post my cell number too if anybody needs to reach me or just wants to. You're welcome to use that. So hang in there. Miss you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.